Guys, let's face it, we're 8 games in. They're not always going to be a thing of beauty, but Penn State got what they needed, which was a win over a ranked opponent at home.
Listen, there are no ugly babies. There are no ugly wins. At the end of the day, this ends up in the column on the left. It's a W, and if we get one that looks like that Saturday, I think everybody will be happy.
Hey, what the heck? We have the good, the bad, and the ugly anyway at the end of the show. BlueWhite Tailgate is next. And we welcome everyone to the BlueWhite Tailgate. Steve, Jay, Todd, Josh a little bit later in the show. Plus, later in the show, we'll talk with Todd Blackledge of ESPN and ABC and get his feel for where everything shakes out with the college football playoff, plus other issues in college football. Well, at one point, Iowa had 14 points, and I said on the broadcast, let's see, that's a special teams touchdown, a field goal, 2 safeties. They have 14 the hard way.
Yes.
This whole game was the hard way in a lot of ways. But they're 2 ranked teams head-to-head. It wasn't going to be easy anyway.
No, that was some creative accounting by Iowa, by the firm of Ferentz, and Parker. But, you know, it wasn't enough at the end of the day.
No.
Well, for the second game in a row, they were able to finish. It wasn't pretty, but they were able to finish. And, you know, in the fourth quarter, it was interesting. They made it interesting with the miscommunication on the handoff for the fumble and then an uncharacteristic pick six. But they got the job done. They got the win that they needed to move to 6-2.
And then the other side of it, Nick Scott got a pick six. Not a pick six, but a pick at the goal line that stopped Iowa when they were on the verge of going in front. So
It looked like he was headed for a pick six when he first got it. There was nothing ahead of him.
I'm not even sure how he got tripped up. All right, James Franklin pretty much saw it the way we did.
We were fortunate to get a win against a really tough opponent in our conference. We didn't always play smart, especially early on in the game, but we played gutsy. We played gutsy. We were fortunate. We were fortunate to be going in at halftime the way we were. I don't know if I've ever been a part of two snaps that ended up resulting in safeties, 2 safeties like that in one game. So that was pretty challenging. Our defense was just so resilient.
And along the way, I thought the first 18 minutes was an episode of Seinfeld's Bizarro World. Okay. But then I thought the last 42 minutes settled down a little bit in the game. I think if you look at it that way, that's how I saw it.
And I think the pattern that we're seeing from this team is there's no real set pattern, is there? I mean, this is what you have from this year's team. We knew they would be young. We didn't know how they would respond in certain situations. You can play the what-if game. What if they could have played another half quarter a little bit better against Michigan State? They'd be sitting at 7-1. It's just an uncharacteristic, some unusual things happen with them. But I thought gutsy is a really good way to describe this team also.
But we are assured of the update desk. Okay, there's no mystery there. So, time now for the update desk presented by PSECU. Josh Sperber standing by.
Here is your pregame update, sponsored by PSECU. Sophomore defensive end Yetur Gross-Matos was named the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week after registering 9 tackles and 2 sacks in the victory against Iowa. He's the first Nittany Lion to win the award since Jason Kabinda in October of last season, but we're going to talk a little bit more about him later on. On the offensive side of the ball, Trace Mcsorely was named a semifinalist for the Maxwell Award, given to the best all-around player in college football. Mcsorely has excelled for Penn State, passing and running the ball, so he's certainly deserving of that honor. As for some Lions in the league, Grant Haley made his first career NFL start for the New York Giants just 2 weeks after being called up from their practice squad, registering 4 tackles in the Giants' defeat. He started with former Penn State player Nate Stupar, the linebacker who registered 3 tackles in the loss in his first NFL start since 2016. The first college football playoff rankings came out on Tuesday night. Penn State is ranked number 14, and their opponent Michigan is at number 5. Alabama starts it off at number 1, Clemson follows at number 2, and LSU and Notre Dame come in at 3 and 4. What do you guys think about the first rankings?
Can't believe they put Alabama first.
What are they thinking?
Yeah, Clemson too. Looks like all the other years. All right, DeAndre Tompkins knows that Michigan's going to present a great challenge for the Nittany Lions.
Very excited. It's an opportunity to go on the road on a Big Ten team with a great team in Michigan. A great stadium, has a lot of history, so to play there means a lot, just like it means a lot playing in Beaver Stadium.
This is what you're going to get when you're in the Big Ten East. You're going to get Penn State, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, Penn State, Michigan. That's what it is.
That's the beauty of joining the conference. And every week you're going to play a team that's got some history, some tradition, a lot of pride, and you're going to get that this Saturday.
History's not great at the Big House for Penn State in recent years, so it would be a huge boost to the program if they can get a W in Ann Arbor.
Huge boost for us to go to the offense. We'll talk about that after this. Well, each team scored 6 times Saturday. Okay?
In a variety of ways.
Very unique. We covered it all.
Each team scored 6 times. Iowa averaged 4 points on its scores. Penn State averaged 5 points on its scores. So let's get to our Blaze Alexander Offensive Player of the Week, Jake Pinniger, brought to you by our good friends from Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. Look, you're talking about a guy who went out, okay, career-long 45-yard field goal. He followed that up with a career-long 49-yard field goal. That was a missile. And he then ended it up with a rather mundane 44-yard field goal. He has now hit 6 of his last 7 field goals, guys.
Every one of those kicks mattered big time on Saturday, and they were all clutch.
Yeah, no doubt. And he even got iced by Coach Franklin one time, and he made that kick too.
Yeah.
So he made an additional 45-yarder as well. And it's great to see him respond so well after Michigan State, after kind of hitting a dud against the Spartans in that one. And, this is great news because Michigan's kicker, Quinn Nordine, not the most confident kicker right now. He's only made 3 of his last 6, only 2 for 4 from 40 to 49
It's an interesting point because now I think also as a coaching staff, you coach a little bit differently when you feel like you're at a spot where you can get 3.
Oh, there's no question about it. In fact, I just, by chance over the weekend, I saw a replay of the Penn State-Wisconsin game in 2002, and we had Robbie Gould hit a 51-yard, and it changed the way we approached that game. And Robbie Gould, and that's hopefully Pinniger's on that trajectory. That'd be a good trajectory to be on.
And guys, since we put Jake Pinniger as the player of the week kind of in our offensive section, I mean, we don't really talk that much special teams. There's 2 observations that you can make about Penn State. One is if you have a trick play, go ahead and run it against the Nittany Lions. Seems to be working right now, even when they know it's coming. And Jay, you mentioned it was such a great catch and throw by Iowa.
Catch by Iowa.
Tremendous. But the other thing is beware of kicking deep late in the game because KJ Hamler, Jonathan Thomas, Penn State's kick return team is coming up with humongous returns at critical moments to shift momentum and get them back in the games against Indiana and against Iowa.
And speaking of critical moments, one of the critical moments, Todd, was Tommy Stevens having to enter the game and how he played.
Well, it's the moment we all didn't want to see. We weren't waiting for. Trace Mcsorely getting an injury during the game and going out and then seeing Tommy Stevens come in a situation he wasn't necessarily ready to do, but he's been preparing for it. He looked very good. He played very admirably, and we hear from all the major players involved with the decision whether to keep him in or bring back Trace.
I feel like I've been preparing for this moment since I'd probably say my redshirt freshman year. So here I am as a redshirt junior. And, it's just something I guess I've been, trying to prepare myself for.
Tommy went in and did a great job, and then to be honest with you, we weren't sure. Tommy had just done a good job for us. So, did we just stick with Tommy? But we just felt like Trace has earned the right to tell us if he thinks he can go.
You get into a game, you don't necessarily know how things are going to happen until you actually go in and test it. All those sort of things. You can draw a play up on paper, but you never know if it's going to actually work until you get in the game and run it.
He tested it with limited success at first. At halftime, both Mcsorely and Stevens thought Trace would be on the sidelines to start the second half.
I was on the bike all halftime, just keeping it loose, and at that point, I said I want to go out there for this first one, and if I can't, then we can go from there. But basically, after that first drive, I knew I'd be good.
Everyone knew he would be good when Trace ripped off this touchdown run, including Stevens. And even though he was relegated to the backup role, Tommy's comment after the game once again demonstrates he is the ultimate team-first guy.
There's, very few people on this planet that I've met that's tougher than Trace Mcsorely. And I couldn't be more proud of what he did today. it meant a lot, I think, to our team, showed a lot to our players, and just, reemphasize how great of a team first type guy, tough guy, and really our leader from his spot in this football team. So couldn't be more happy for him. Obviously, I want to play in roles and help out however I can. So given that was the best opportunity for our team, that's what we were going to roll with.
Just an awesome comment after the game. I mean, this is a tough situation for him to sit and wait his turn and wait his turn and wait his turn, and then to get out there, feel some success, and then have to go back to the sidelines. I mean, I'm just really, really impressed with Tommy Stevens and how much he does to help out the team, and impressed with his play, guys. Once he got in the game, I think a lot of Penn State fans should feel very comfortable and feel very good about what he did when he was in there.
One important thing, I think it's time to get a new bike on the sideline. That bike, can we get him a Peloton with some, one of those spin classes from New York? We got to get him something new. It's about time.
Yeah, you know what? But like Sanders waited his turn, Stevens is waiting his turn. That doesn't happen at most places. People don't wait their turn anymore. All right, let's get to the drive of the week. All right, it's going to be a shorty here. It's a 4-play, 77-yard drive as part of our drive of the week. And here we go. Trace Mcsorely gets it rolling here with the pass down the sideline to KJ Hamler. And then quarterback draw. He just takes it 51 yards. Yeah, I'm hurt. Sure I am.
Well, the great thing about that play is Iowa lined up in man straight across,
Yep.
no middle, no free safety, and a guy like Mcsorely sees that and goes, you know what, I'm gone.
Favorite part of the play for me, DeAndre Tompkins holding that block at the end. He doesn't score if he doesn't hold that block all the way through. Very, very important against Michigan. Wide receivers are going to have to block and finish all the way through. They got to fight for every inch in Ann Arbor at the Big House.
4-minute offense, guys. Nick Scott gets the big interception at the goal line. We still don't know how he got tripped up at the 10. Okay.
Got to cut that grass down.
Yeah, got to cut it down a little bit. They get a first down out of it, but then eventually do have to give the ball back, so it's mixed results there, right?
Yeah, still, you would like to, as a fan, the fans certainly are going to say, well, can't we get one more first down so that we don't have to see all these passes?
Right.
Because at some point you were hoping that Stanley wouldn't make a play.
And as a play caller, I don't know. Maybe the answer is to have some 4-minute offense plays that you've got to see that works. You have things that work in the red zone. Maybe there's 4-minute offense plays they can start scripting a little bit just to get that extra first down to ice some of these games.
All right, let's take a look at the tail of the tape between Penn State's offense and the Michigan defense. Geez, they're good defensively. Look at that.
Who knew?
That's very impressive. I didn't know that. They're awfully good defensively. They don't give up anything.
No, they're very, very physical. They benefit from two things. Number one, offensively, they hold the ball quite a bit, and their punter is really, really good, so their opponents are on long fields.
Yeah, Will Hart has had a big year, 49 yards a punt for them this year. I'll come back. I'll talk with Todd Blackledge about the college football scene after this. And welcome back. I'm very pleased to be joined by former Nittany Lion and current ABC ESPN analyst Todd Blackledge. Todd, welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Oh, it's good to be with you too, man.
All right, let's start with this. The college football playoff rankings came out. It's the current snapshot of the week. You end up with one of the key games within this snapshot, Northwestern and Notre Dame. What are a couple things that really in this game interest you going into it?
I think this is going to be a challenging game for Notre Dame. I think not only is it a road game, but with the playoff ranking coming out and Notre Dame being one of the initial first four teams, I think the bullseye on their back just got even bigger. I think this game at Northwestern, of all their games left, might be the trickiest one for them. So I think it's a significant game, and I think it was just added to by the initial playoff ranking.
You had Notre Dame earlier in the year, and you and I talked after that game. And something that Brian Kelly had told you was that, hey, look, he likes his defense a lot. So what has the move to Ian Book meant to the overall football team, but also to helping the defense out?
Well, I think it's totally changed their football team. Brian, we had the Wake Forest game when they made the switch to Ian Book. And you could see in that game immediately the difference he makes in his ability as a passer to not only stretch the field, but to get the ball in the hands of playmakers, because they have lots of them, not only accurately but on time. And it just changed what their offensive football team looked like. And I think it affects their defense because they've been able to possess the football and put drives together and maintain possession, and that limits the number of snaps that their defense has. And I know even when we got ready to do that game, the Wake Forest game, their defensive coaches were very concerned because two of their leaders on defense, Tavon Coney and Drew Tranquil, their two starting linebackers, had played literally every single snap of their first 4 games. And, so the offense's success and change in the offense has helped rest their defense at times as well.
Of course, I can't let you go without talking a little bit about Penn State. You've been able to, obviously, you had the Pitt game. You've been able to at least get some glimpses from afar. What have you thought about Penn State, and what have you thought about the performances of Trace Mcsorely?
Well, first of all, I said this when the season started. I mean, I have not backed off of it at all. I mean, if there was a game on the line, in the fourth quarter, in the last 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever, I don't think there's anybody in college football I'd rather have than Trace Mcsorely. I just think he's a complete winner. He's a competitor. He's going to do whatever it takes to put his team in the best position to win. And I love watching him play, and I just hope he finishes as strong as his whole career has been. I think he's a great player. I think that the team overall, when I saw him against Pitt, you could tell they've got young talent, but it's going to take a while. And, here we are now 8-9 weeks in, and, I think they're a really good team. I don't know that they're a great football team right now, but I think they're a very good team. I think they have a great quarterback, and I think they've got a lot of talented players. So we'll see how they play down the stretch here. They still have some challenging games left for sure, and none more challenging than what they've got this weekend, because I think Michigan is playing the best of anybody in the Big Ten right now. I just think they're a team that has gotten better as the season has gone on, and I think that they are kind of playing at the best level right now.
And in this turn to November, you've got a game with Notre Dame Northwestern. The team that is on the outside at the moment, looking in the current snapshot, is Michigan. You mentioned you think that they have a chance to be the best team in the Big Ten, at least at this moment. What makes them that way?
Well, I think their defense is a given. I think we knew coming in what they had defensively, and Don Brown's done a great job with that unit, and they've played at a very high level. I felt that coming into the season because I had seen enough of Shea Patterson when he was at Ole Miss to know that this was the most talented throwing quarterback that Harbaugh's had in his time at Michigan. And so I knew that as he got more comfortable and got better, their offense was going to be better. I also think, one of the things that doesn't get talked about as much, Jim was able to add a couple really, really good football coaches to his staff this year. Ed Warner as an offensive line coach who did a great job at Ohio State for a number of years, and I've known Ed for a long time. And then Jim McElwain, joined the staff. Those are I don't know. I've not done a Michigan game, so I haven't been able to see myself the specific impact those two guys have had. But I just know they're really, really good football coaches that have been added to that mix. And again, I think they're a team that you can see on film is getting better the more they play.
Todd, absolute pleasure. I know you've got a big game this week with Northwestern, Notre Dame. That's what makes it fun this time of the year, games with stakes, and that's what we have with the college football playoff now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than college football, and this is when the games get really exciting, and, people get all up in arms or want to debate that first college football ranking, but, I mean, that's just a place to start, and it really does not pan out to necessarily determine who those Final Four are going to be by the end of the year, but it's fun. This is when the season gets really fun.
Todd, thanks so much. Always appreciate your time, and good luck with your game this weekend.
Thanks, Steve. Take care.
All right, we'll come back. Take a look at the Penn State defense as we continue with Blue White Tailgate after this. All right, welcome back. We'll take a look now at the Penn State defense. It's only appropriate, D block for defense. Why not? So we'll do that. We'll start out with Nick Scott. Nick Scott against Indiana had an interception and a fumble recovery on special teams, and he then had the interception at the goal line when Noah Fant was looking at the student section. So let's get to Nick first, taking us through the interception, but maybe not the run back.
Anytime I can do that, like I was saying a little earlier, for this team and put us in a better position as a team, that's like the most fulfilling, most fulfilling feeling that I could ever get. Whether I had made a tackle on special teams at that point in the game or anything like that, it would have been the same feeling. Just doing something positive for these guys and affecting us in a way that we're celebrating in the locker room is huge for me.
Yeah, he's got 3 takeaways. We can talk about Fant, but what I liked is Scott broke on the ball.
Yeah,
he broke. I mean, he broke on it. He read it, and he broke on it.
Yeah. Well, look, they're 4-2. They're coming off 2 straight losses. Who do you look to make a splash to pick the team up? Your captains.
Yeah.
Nick Scott's done exactly that.
Yeah, we talked about Mcsorely doing it on offense, captain. Now you got a captain and Scott doing it on defense. He's got 3 takeaways personally in the last 2 games.
Well, obviously it was a big play, and as you mentioned, there was some confusion on Iowa's side, and Scott took advantage of it, and that's what great players do.
All right, Blaze Alexander, Defensive Player of the Week, brought to you by our good friends at Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships, and our Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Defensive Player of the Week. Could have picked him last week, too. Yetur Gross-Matos. You want to talk about a guy that's coming on at the defensive end spot. What do you guys think about his play recently?
Obviously, he's really stepped it up, and I think that's going to be important because the interior is still banged up. The interior of that defensive line is still susceptible to some things. So they're going to have to make some plays off the edge.
Well, Coach Franklin just talks about his motor all the time. He kind of likens him to Chase Winovich from Michigan, that he's just always, at full speed in practice, and that's what you like to hear. Those are the guys that set the tone, they set the pace, they set the example in practice, and it is translating to the field, guys.
And he's got 19 tackles and 4 sacks the last 2 games. Remember last week we were talking about Shaka Tony, and I said, the Gross-Matos numbers are spread out through the 60 minutes.
Right.
While Shaka had a lot of fourth quarter production, which of course you need it whenever you can get it.
Don't be humble. You saw this coming, though. I mean, you talked about him at the beginning of the year,
we did this
right?
in the first show.
Yeah.
We had to identify who. So I picked a young player that I thought could make a difference because the other guys were known entities. So I picked him, and the producer blew it off.
Look
like
how
he
humble
always
he's
does.
being, Jay. You saw it coming.
There was not much humility in the pre-production meeting that you people did not see on camera.
That's exactly right.
There was definitely some. He may have broken his arm patting himself on the back calling that one.
Well, because Stroh gets so, Okay, now the other guy is Micah Parsons. Now, a lot of people have been hoping to see him break out. Now he's the team's leading tackler. He's had 15 the last 2 games. What are you seeing in him?
Don't you like to see versatility on offense? Well, what about defense, too? I mean, they're lining him up at defensive end. They know he can play defensive end or linebacker. And, a lot of guys that are like Micah that are just instinctive. Whatever you can do to get him near the football, right, is what you want to do. And all of a sudden, he hasn't even started. He hasn't even been full-time. The guy leads the team in tackles.
Well, I'm still waiting to see him line up at linebacker, take on a guy, shed a block, and make a tackle for a gain of 1 because he's not doing that yet, and that's going to be something that's got to come down the road. And you know what? For his future, he may be better off as a defensive end down the road. Yeah. And when you start looking at what the NFL's paying for, if I'm Micah Parsons, I go, that defensive end thing looks pretty good.
All right. Well, another guy, Micah Parsons came in with great fanfare. Everybody had to have him. At the opposite end of the scale is Jan Johnson, who just got his scholarship. He's about 9 days into having a scholarship, and Josh Sperber takes a look at how it all happened.
As I mentioned last week, Jan Johnson was put on scholarship before last week's game against Indiana. He is a hard worker and has been a valuable member of this Penn State team since he joined.
He's always put the university first, put the athletic department first. The wrestling team needed him. He went over there and did what he had to do to help that organization. You ask a guy who's trying to earn a job at linebacker to go play scout team tight end, not once did he question it. Whatever Coach Pryor or myself asked him to do, he did it to the best of his ability.
The meeting before the Indiana game wasn't when Franklin was planning to give Jan Johnson his scholarship. There was not even a camera in the room, but it was still a touching moment for Johnson and the rest of his teammates.
We were just kind of in the team meeting room. Coach Franklin was kind of talking about, embracing your role on the team. Whether you're the starter or whether you're on scout team. Embracing that and doing it full. full throttle, and that kind of led him to Jan's announcement, because Jan's a guy that experienced that. 2016 had to get in after multiple linebacker injuries into the Michigan game. All the adversity he went through, and for him to overcome that and earn a scholarship was just great. So I'm proud of him.
Johnson has 7 tackles in 2 games as a scholarship athlete and is tied for second on the team with 42 tackles this season. He's a big part of this Penn State defense and a part of what makes this Penn State football culture so great.
Well said, Josh. And now let's get to the tail of the tape between these two teams. Now, I thought the Michigan defensive numbers were impressive. The offensive numbers are good. I mean, they're good. And you see Penn State's, I think, defensive numbers are getting better. And what's interesting, I think they're getting better, and they're playing better teams, actually, and they're getting better.
Well, they've played some teams that some of them were one-handed, so to speak. Iowa's not a great run team, so they were able to take that away. This is an offense they're playing that has the ability to run the ball and throw the ball. Not necessarily great in either one, but they play well enough. And you look at the teams that Michigan's beaten the last 4 weeks, they're playing good opponents. I'm
interested to see if either team's going to be able to move the ball really well through the air. I mean, Michigan has really suffocated passing attacks, and the completion percentage hasn't been great for Trace Mcsorely and Penn State. So we talked about this before. When they try to throw on first down, if you're going to be incomplete on close to 50% of those, you're going to, man, you go 2nd and 10 against Michigan. That's no fun right away. And Michigan on the same thing. There's a lot of pressure on Shea Patterson. I mean, of course, he's done a great job up to this point, especially with interceptions. We'll talk about their team a little bit more later. But I think the pressure's starting to mount on those guys because now Michigan is the team. There's a lot of talk that they're carrying the Big Ten flag at this point.
And speaking about pressure, Nick Scott feels that's one of the keys Penn State is to put pressure on that offense.
You got to make him uncomfortable in the pocket. He's not going to be in there too long. Like you said, they're very efficient. They get the ball out fast, which is one of the reasons why they're able to have such a high completion percentage, and they have receivers that are going to catch the ball. So, making him uncomfortable in the pocket as well as getting hands on the receivers and try to create as small windows as possible is going to be huge.
48% on third down. They have a lot of third and shorts. Penn State, though, 15 of its last 60 on third down. I mean, offensively. All right, a trip to the film room is next.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate. We are in the film room with Mr. Jay Paterno, and he has dug up some Bo Schembechler video that we can look at from because I don't know if they've changed anything. This is brought to you by Beer Belly's Beverage, of course. And look, I make a joke, but Michigan does what Michigan does.
Right.
And Jim Harbaugh is a Michigan man. So let's talk about defense first, because we're going to talk about Don Brown, because he's a Michigan defensive coordinator, man, and we'll get to Harbaugh's offense in a few minutes.
This is a really, really good defensive football team, by far the best one Penn State will play all year. And let's take a look at one of the things that makes them really outstanding is you look at the last, since they got in the Big Ten, 61 opponent drives, 33 and outs, and the time of possession just 23-17, which means Michigan's offense has the ball for 36-43, if I did my math correct. But let's talk about what makes them good. And one of the things to do is when you look at their base defense, they are a one safety high, playing man-to-man all over the place. The 3 linebackers are going to combo your tight end, your running back, and your quarterback, which means they'll have somebody in place for Trace if he runs the ball. They play outside leverage here, which opens these slants up for the RPO with help here, and then you're one-on-one out on the outside. So Hamler is a guy that's got to have a big game. So let's take a look at how that looks in video. You see that outside leverage. Again, now here Nebraska uses it to slot to run the reverse, but look how quickly they get to the ball. There's 5 or 6 guys that are making the tackle, and that's going to be a theme on Saturday if Penn State's not careful. Now, one of the things they've changed a little bit from last year is they're playing some 2 safety high defenses on first down. They're still pressing your wideouts, and they've still got an outside linebacker out here. They're aggressive up the field, which means Bush is going to make a lot of tackles. But again, watch on video how quickly these guys show up. Steve talked about how they're great level players at every level. That is a phenomenal close and tackle, and when they get there, they've got bad intentions. Now, when you get into some rundown blitz situations, they do some things that are very creative. Here, they're going to take this guy, walk up here, play man-to-man on the outside, and get real aggressive. And if you get behind schedule with Michigan, they are like sharks. They smell blood in the water, and the quarterback can be a sitting duck. Take a look at this play from Nebraska. One of the things Penn State may have to do is find ways to get Mcsorely outside the pocket, because if you're in there, they know where you are, and they're going to storm the fort. Now, on third downs, They're really, really good defensively. Again, expect man-to-man. They take in their nickel, they take their starting corner and put him on the slot. So now Hamler, who may be Penn State's best wideout, is playing against their best corner with help, which helps them. They rush straight, and you're going to see in this one they spy, and then these guys are going to handle the backs and the tight ends. And again, take a look at how they do this. Again, you can see that slot has help with a safety over the top. Now, where they have been susceptible is if you get loose, and if they're going to try and spy Trace Mcsorely with a defensive lineman, he should be able to make some plays if he's healthy. Now, the other thing we'll talk about is overload blitzes. We talked a little bit about this with Indiana a couple weeks ago, but again, they're going to give you 4 to a side, and when you're in one back all day like Penn State is, those four blitzes to a side give you hot situations. You got to throw the ball, and you can't block them all. They also will play that running back with their middle linebacker who's good enough to cover. So take a look again how they line up, they come off the edge, and again, nothing you can do about it. You got to get the ball out, but with all the man, you don't have the easy throw.
Penn State has had some trouble getting off the ball with that press. We'll see what happens with the slot receiver. Move to the offense. Coach Harbaugh, what do you like what they're doing there?
They hold the football. They're deliberate. They make long drives, control the game, and take a look at their scoring drives. In the last 4 games against 4 really good teams that are 20-12 combined, you look at their average scoring drive is 8.5 plays, 75 yards, and takes 4.5 minutes. That means Mcsorely standing on the sideline for a long time. Let's take a look at what they do offensively. Number 1, power run game. This has been Harbaugh's mode since he was at Stanford. Everywhere he's been, the power play. They're going to kick down, block down with these guys, kick out with a big, strong fullback against your defensive end, lead with the backside guard, and get north-south, and they'll do it out of a ton of formations. Take a look here. Here is 2 tight ends with 2 backs. Again, nice and easy, gain 7-8 yards. If they can do that consistently, could be a long day for Penn State's defense. Take a look at now, again, 2 backs. Here's their fullback, Mason. Here's their tailback. Here's their quarterback. They're going to run outside sweep. One of the things that they have now that they have not had in the past is a run threat from the quarterback, which holds this backside linebacker. Take a look at this one as we take a look at this from the end zone. You're going to see those blocks down. They kick out, and now Higdon is north and south, makes a big play. Again, 2 backs with the threat of the quarterback running the backside. Play action pass, a big thing for these guys. And most teams, when you get the play action pass, it's over the top, deep passes. They are very comfortable throwing short underneath passes, play action passes with Shea coming out on the edge. You play that inside run game, you play that stuff with your defensive lineman, you start chasing, and next thing you know, Patterson is on the edge. Let's take a look at this one. Again, they come off this fake, a great fake. They got the linebackers running downhill, the defensive end closes, they block them, and here comes a tight end from the other side. Again, that's a 13-yard play on first down, and those are good plays for them. And then the last thing this year that they're better at than they've been the last 2 or 3 years that Penn State's played them is they're good on third downs, under pressure. Shea has done a good job. Here you're going to get pressure from Nebraska. He hangs in there and makes a great throw here on this one. On a 3rd and 11, they find their tight end on a crossing route. He gets across, gets him, moves the chains, and that's going to be the key Saturday is keeping Michigan from moving the chains.
So this is why they're double-digit dogs against
Penn State?
Yeah, Penn State is in the big house. We'll see what happens. All right, we break down the blue and maize some more when we come back on the BlueWhite Tailgate.
All right, Michigan lost its opening game of the year at Notre Dame. Notre Dame played really well. Michigan did not look great that opening night. So then they went to the back and really seemed to be out of sight for a while. And while they were out of sight, they started winning and winning and winning and winning. What do you think of this team?
I think defensively they're really, really good. Offensively, they do what they need to do to win games. And you look at the last 4 games, they've beaten 4 teams that are, Northwestern win suddenly looks very different than it did a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
The Michigan State win was impressive when they held Michigan State's offense to 95 yards for the game. So you're looking at a team that's really starting to come in its own.
That certainly seems to be lining up to be their year in the Big Ten. They're the only team undefeated in Big Ten play still. I mean, they could afford a trip up. Not that that's going to happen, but they could afford one. They still have Ohio State on the schedule a little bit later. So, Coach Harbaugh, it's taken him, it's his 4th season. He's gotten the guys that he wants in there. This is the style that he wants to play, and we're obviously going to give a lot of credit to their defensive coordinator as well, who's been doing a heck of a job.
And that's Don Brown. He's done it forever. Press up on the corners, unleash the hounds with the other 9, and DeAndre Tompkins knows they have to beat it.
Very tough. You know, he's going to bring a lot of pressure. He has a lot of athletes on his team who can make plays. And you know that every pass is going to be a one-on-one pass. And, you know, you're going to have to come with the best talent that you got. And you know that it's not going to be easy.
You know, sometimes, guys, when you look at a unit, you'll say, okay, they got a great player here and they got a great player there. I feel like they have a great player at all three levels. How tough is that, Jay, when you have to defend a team where you know all three levels has somebody you have to take care of?
Very tough. I mean, it doesn't get any tougher than that. But, you know, you get a guy in the secondary and the middle linebacker runs him down, Bush, or you get him in the secondary and Metellus runs him down. And, you know, the thing I think is impressive about these guys, they don't give up a lot of big plays, and they take a lot of chances on defense, but they've got speed to make up for mistakes.
To your point about that, about big plays, and I think this is going to be a really interesting part of this game, is I don't know who they've played that can create a ton of good plays, you know, from a Big Ten perspective quite yet. I don't know if Michigan State was that team with Lewerke. I don't know if, you know, Wisconsin was that team with Hornibrook and the way that they stop. I think if there's a team that can beat them, it's still on their schedule with either Penn State or Ohio State, obviously from a talent perspective, but also from a potential big play impact. And if Penn State can knock off one or two, if Hamler or somebody, a kick return, whatever, or Ohio State, does Michigan have the offense to then, you know what I mean, if they get behind in the game? Steve, you always like to say play with the lead, right?
Right.
It's especially important, I think, for the Wolverines, the way that they're built.
But, you know, the thing about them is they got down to Northwestern 17-0, and they did not panic. And I think that's different of this Michigan team than it's been the last couple of years. They just, okay, you know what, we're going to do what we do. We're going to change the tempo of the game, and they got back and won.
I thought last year Penn State did a good job against their front, and they had both Gary and Winovich. And Winovich is having a really great year this year. He's been terrific. Now the other side, Shea Patterson, they pinned all their hopes. Michigan, the cradle of transfer quarterbacks. But Shea Patterson's produced, and James Franklin's impressed by him.
They're able to go out and get an experienced quarterback. So they got a guy who's played a lot of football, been in big moments, those types of things. He's a guy that I would probably describe a lot like Trace. You know, you watch him and he's able to make plays from the pocket. He's able to make plays from outside the pocket, and he's also able to make plays with his feet.
And there's no question about that. He does a lot. Zach Gentry, he likes to use his tight end. Donovan Peoples-Jones has been his game breaker, I guess, at wide receiver to a point. But I mean, really, the focal point's what he does. Yeah, what do you think of him?
Well, I think he's a guy that they're doing the right things for him right now. They're running the ball inside, and they're running play action off it, like we talked about in the film room. They're doing things to get him on the edge and let him make some plays, but also staying within the system Michigan wants to be in, and he's not turning the ball over.
You just said he's doing his job. He's only got 3 interceptions. They don't want to give opponents a short field.
Yeah, that's big. And the other part, too, about doing your job is, Todd, Karan Higdon. Look, do I think he's a pro? No. Do I think he's a really good college running back? Yeah, and he's a downhill guy in conjunction with their offensive line and tight ends.
4, 5, 6 yards.
Yeah.
Give us what you can.
Yes.
If you can get a little bit more than that, great. That's all they ask of Higdon. That's all they ask of their offense, to stay on schedule, to create a lot of time of possession for him.
And Nick Scott knows and concurs with what you're saying. That, look, they got to keep control over him so they're not getting 3rd and shorts.
I think it starts up front. You know, those guys up front are going to have to impose their will, and then when he reaches the second level of linebackers and the safeties, we got to be willing tacklers. We got to be able to punish him and get him on the ground. But, you know, he's a phenomenal athlete. He runs hard with bad intentions, so it's going to be a great challenge for us.
It's interesting because Ed Podolak talked to Jack Ham after the game, and he said, hey, look, I looked at the tapes. So that's the best you've tackled. They're going to have to be great tacklers in this game, so there's no yards after contact.
No question. And look, you're looking at an offense that is very different than Penn State's in two regards. One is, this is a pitch count offense. Let's get the 2nd and 6th, 3rd and 2 first down, where Penn State wants to make big chunk plays. Well,
our pitch count says we're going to the bullpen for the closer. We'll come back and wrap it up after this. All right, welcome back. Hey, don't forget the Happy Valley Cruise. All right, that's coming up. It's going to benefit Special Olympics. They're going to the Bahamas. They're going to go at a time of the year where I can't go because I'll be in Chicago doing basketball. Visit www.happyvalleycruise.com. And Sue Paterno, by the way, is going to join us on next week's show.
You guys invited my mom? That's not cool.
Well,
and you didn't even know.
I didn't even know.
Our director, Adam, says it's a parent-teacher conference. So, like, okay, that was the cruel thing he said in the break. I mean, the guys, you know, Okay. All right. We'll have information on our producer and director in the Rutgers Week show. All right. So the good, the bad, the ugly. Obviously, what happened in Pittsburgh was horrific beyond words. Then how do you react after that? The Pittsburgh Steelers have gone out and they've been deeply involved in the community. Teams can do something to help at least heal a little bit, and the Steelers, to their credit, en masse as an organization, have done that.
Penguins, same thing.
Penguins,
Wore
same
the stronger
thing.
than
Good
hate
point, Todd.
patches, which was a really nice, wonderful
Yep.
gesture. I get the bad. Jay gets the ugly, so I'll let him handle Maryland. I was gonna, but
Yeah.
it's beyond bad to the ugly. I'll just say, for the Pac-12, their chances to get into the college football playoff. I think most of us are rooting for them because Washington State would be that representative, but their chances aren't good. Number 8, they got 1 loss and they got a tough schedule to finish out. So bad again for the Pac-12 because they may be left out in the cold.
Could you see Mike Leach at the college football playoff press
well,
conference?
It would be great.
It.
Would be a
It'd
pleasure.
one of the great moments in college football. And I have the ugly. Let me just, for a minute, there's a ton of reaction to Maryland's decision to retain DJ Durkin. There are a lot of facts that most of us don't know. There's some misreporting on this thing. I think we have to let this thing play out and settle down and find out what really is going on there. And the NCAA, quite frankly, has to let you want to prevent these type of things in the future. Let coaches have access to their players in the summer workouts. They don't have that in football. They have it in basketball. And if the coaches are there, I think you got different outcomes.
What I'd like to do at some point would be a show in the off season where we do an issue show,
Right,
where we talk about something like this, because basketball is so much more liberal with contact with players and coaches in the off season as opposed to football. I think it'd be a fun show to do.
And I'd like to see Maryland push for that kind of legislative overhaul as a way to really make something out of this positive.
All right, picks. I know some of you rely on this segment.
I hope not.
I know we don't.
Moose
Not
and
for much
Rocco are
longer.
outside their door if they are looking to collect.
Right now, who's spent a dime on their picks? I've got Alabama LSU.
Are they playing this week?
Yeah, I heard that. White being out the first half's a factor because of the targeting call. You need all hands on deck. I'll go with Alabama to win because I think it's a safe pick. Todd, never a safe pick. You got one of the biggies. Georgia, Kentucky. It's maybe the biggest Kentucky football game in a decade. Oh,
it's a basketball school.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, slow your roll, Kentucky. Georgia's got you. I'm going with the Bulldogs.
And I got West Virginia and Texas. This one I've gone back and forth on. It's in Austin. I think Texas a little bit chapped about some things that happened last week, and I think they beat West Virginia, but I think it's a close one.
All right, Josh, you've got the Era Parsegian Bowl. It's Notre Dame and Northwestern.
Clayton Thorson may have surpassed 10,000 yards of total offense in his career last week, but I don't think that'll be enough to help the Wildcats beat Notre Dame. Ian Book has been outstanding this season, completing over 71% of his passes in each start this season, including 81% in each of the past 2 games. I expect the Fighting Irish to win big on the road.
All right, interesting pick there, Josh. Okay, keys to the game. Look, I think giveaway, takeaway becomes important in this. To stop drives and at the same time maybe produce something in a short field. So that'd be my key to the game, brought to you by our good friends at Aaron's.
I think the big thing for Penn State's defense is going to be first down. If Michigan is getting 4 yards a clip running the football on first down, it's going to be a long afternoon for Penn State's defense.
I think it's Miles Sanders. I think Trace McSorley is going to need some help from someone, whether it's picking up blitzes, whether it's out of the backfield catching the ball, or just a good productive game in the rushing attack. I think Miles Sanders is the key to this game.
And again, don't forget, Happy Valley Cruise is coming up, and the big part of the cruise is not only who's going to be on the cruise, but what it benefits. Special Olympics Pennsylvania. We'll talk to Sue Paterno next week. www.happyvalleycruise.com. We're going to cruise on out of here. I'm going to cruise to Ann Arbor. For Todd, Jay, Josh, and the entire crew, including commentary from the truck, I'm Steve Jones.